So first, let's jump into spring splits. Yeah, now I won't be able to make any splits until at least, oh gosh, another month or another month and a half. I know things are warming up earlier, it seems like each year, but I'm not quite out of the woods yet. So I gotta be careful. I've made splits too early before, and I've lost colonies, believe it or not, making splits too early. They died out, it got cold. You get bees through the cold winter, then you make splits too early, and then your splits get too cold, they get chilled, brood, and they die. And that's kind of sad. You wouldn't think they'd freeze out in the spring, so you got to be careful. So you talk about when is the best time to make a split. The timing is essential. And I want to talk about different methods that we can use to make splits. I'm going to talk about feeding splits. And let's talk about tonight, how many times can you split a hive? Can you split a hive more than once? Maybe twice, 4 times? How many times can you split a hive? And then let's talk about testing for mites and treating mites when you make that split. So got a lot to talk about. Get the note pen ready and take some notes, because if you were fortunate enough to get your bees through the winter, then you're going to be facing swarms and or the need to make splits. So let's talk about a timing of a split. Well, first, like I just said, it has to be warm enough to support a smaller colony. You make your bees, they make it through winter because they are a large colony. They have a lot of bees in winter physiology. They have food on there. They're large in population. That's why they made it through cold winter. But when you make a split, you're usually only making a 4 or 5 frame split. And when you do that, that's a much smaller group of bees. And if the temperature, you have an Alberta clipper come off out of the north, and it just freezes everything, that little 5 frame nucleus may not have the population to survive a cold snap. So it's got to be warm enough. Now, what I do, and look, I don't claim to be the only person that has the only right way to do it. If you know me and watch me very long, you know that I say I don't know everything, and you don't have to do it my way. You can do it your way, and that's perfectly fine. I don't know it all, but I'll just tell you my experience. What I've learned, I live in central Illinois, by the way, and this is live if you're tuned in right now. If you're watching the replay, it's not live. But I'm in central Illinois, and it gets cold. We're kind of out on the prairie. It gets very windy. It's going to be very windy the next few days, by the way. 30 miles an hour wind. So we got that to deal with. But one of the things that concerns me is the low temperatures at night. So even in Illinois, we can have 70-degree days, even in spring, but then at night, it can get well below freezing. And that might be too cold for my splits. So I need to really discipline myself. And I usually never make a split until the last week of April or the first week of May. That's me where I live. And that's the historical pattern that I find that's very safe. I've heard a lot of people say here in Illinois that really they don't plant certain kind of flowers and plants until Mother's Day. And so, that's late. This is like a week into May, I think. But, we have that to consider. I got plenty of time to make my splits. Here's the deal. Now, bees split or swarm naturally first week of May here in Illinois. Now, you can adjust this a little bit to where you live. If you drop down, 100 miles south of me, you might want to adjust it by several days. 200 miles south of me, you might want to adjust it by a week, so on. You can just figure that out yourself. And going north, it's the other way around. So, it's not a matter. Some people think, I need to listen to a beekeeper that's in my area because I can follow them better. I get that. Bees are the same. Bees are going to do the same thing, no matter what state you live in. It's just going to be at the same temperature, right? So let's say bees start swarming when the nights get above 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That's true no matter if you live in the deep south, you live in way up north. It just occurs differently at different times based on where you live. So I like to say that prior to the parent colony swarming is the best time to make a split. And I know that sounds silly because you think, well, how do I know when they're going to swarm? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But really, that is a fact. your bees are wanting to swarm anyway. So you got to get in there before they do and make a split. And that way you're actually simulating an artificial swarm. And I'll tell you how to do that. It works so good. I used to worry a lot about this when I first started beekeeping. I used to fret about, oh my gosh, my bees are going to swarm. How do I make a split? What's the best way to make a split? There's so many different ways to make a split, that I was panicking which way would be the best way and all that. I'm going to take the panic out of it. I'm going to take the anxiety out of it. You got a walk away split. You got the Demarest method for swarm control. Some people use a double screen or a Snell grow board for swarm control. I could talk about there's so many of them, boy. So don't panic and try to find the one that's represented as the best way. Find one that that will work easily for you. Some of these are complicated, to be honest with you. I really think the Demarest method is complicated to a lot of beekeepers. And sometimes you can watch a YouTube video about it or something, and it can take an hour and a half for somebody to go into the details of all the little different things you got to do when you do Demarest swarm control. It can be overwhelming. Now, in the description of this video, I left a description, a link to my video of how to do a Demarest method where I simplified it. I think I did it in, under 10 minutes, 6 minutes or something. And so after this live stream, you can go back and look in this description and you can follow along my video on how to do a Demarest method. It is swarm control, by the way, and it's a cool way to make a lot of honey. Don't try to make it complicated. So many people watch that video and then they try to alter how it's done. Now you start altering it, you're going to get altered results, and I can't make any guarantee what happens after that. As far as the double screen board, that's very similar almost to a Snell grow board with a lot of little different doors on the side of it. I've made a video about that one too, and I've left the link to that video in the description of this live stream video. So you can watch both of those videos and get the full detail and where I drilled down deeper into that. I think that might be more of like a 30-minute video or something, but it will show you if you wanted to try that double screen or Snell Grove approach to swarm control. So let's talk about swarm control. How do you go about controlling swarms in your hive? First, let me put out a disclaimer. Swarming in the spring is a reproductive tendency of your colony. All colonies will want to reproduce. My gosh, if they didn't, the bees would be gone. This is the way the bees have a baby. This is how they have children. They have to reproduce. And a healthy colony that made it through winter will indeed and should swarm. Now, beekeepers don't like it because sometimes you lose half your colony and you lose your old queen, and they have to raise a new queen, and you're down 50% when they swarm. You have to wait for them to build up to make honey. I get it. But look, you want your bees to swarm. You want them to be that healthy. The trick is, if you want to keep those bees, you have to do something. So the way to control it is you have to inspect your bees once a week. This is not easy. I'll be perfectly honest and upfront right now. It is very challenging when you have to inspect your hive once a week, because what you're doing, and this is in the spring during swarm season, you have to look at the lower part of the frames and see if you see queen cells, swarm cells, little peanut shape about the size of your pinky hanging down vertically alongside of a frame at the bottom of frames. And there'll be a lot of them. Those are swarm cells. You might see 6 swarm cells on all 10 frames. I've made videos where I've gone into a hive and we start cutting out swarm cells, frame after frame after frame. It's a lot of work, but if you don't do that, your hive's going to swarm. So if you're really dedicated to swarm control, you got to be dedicated to inspect your colony. Some people just go and lift up one of the deeps, kind of hinge it where you can see underneath it without taking frames out. That does kind of work, but it's not a sure way to do it because the bees are all over the place in there. You don't get a really good eye all throughout that those bottom frames. It's best to pull them out and look. And that's a lot of work. It really is. And when you see those swarm cells, if you want to prevent your hive from swarming, first, number one, before you remove any of those swarm cells, make sure you see the original queen, not a virgin queen, but the original queen. That's what my take is. Yeah, I guess if you see a queen, you're probably fine. A virgin queen, a mate, it'd be okay. But what happens, I want you to look, guys, listen closely. What happens with people that have told me many times they've done this, they'll go in there and the hive has already swarmed. The old queen is left, and they don't know that. They don't look for the queen. They see swarm cells, they tear them out, and they destroy them. And they just removed any hope that that hive would have a queen, because there's no young eggs that they can now raise frames from, or bees from, queens. And so they're hopelessly queenless unless you give them a queen. So make sure first a queen is in there before you remove these swarm cells, okay? And then you can remove them. But now, and these swarm cells, I like them, by the way. This is a really good teaching. Please note this. Make a note right now. Swarm cells are good cells. Don't just tear them out and throw them away. These are good quality queens, I think. And if I'm going to cut out swarm cells, I'm going to have a home for them. Some mating nooks that are queenless, another hive somewhere. I'm going to have my incubator warmed up. I'm going to hold them in there as long as I can until I can move them out. These are good queens. You love them. You don't want to just destroy these swarm cells. So if you can harvest them, use them somewhere else. I've made a video on how to do this, how to surgically remove them with an X-Acto knife, cut them out. I'll tell you, if you go through my videos, you got to binge watch me because I've got all these videos on how to do things like this. And it's very helpful. It's a very popular video, by the way. Now, another thing you can do, listen to this, another good tip. Let's say you're working a hive, you're worried about them swarming, you see swarm cells, but let's say you don't have time right now to do anything about it. Maybe you just looked real quick, but you have a doctor's appointment or you got to work, you got to leave, and you can't deal with it. What you can do, if your queen is in there, let's say your marked queen from last year, she's walking around and yet you see swarm cells, take a push-in queen cage and isolate your queen in a push-in queen cage, because she's not leaving if she's in a cage and they're not swarming without mama. So that will buy you a minute. That will buy you time until you can get back in there in a day or two, okay? Another way to do it is you can take a queen excluder and put it on top of your bottom board between the first deep box. Now the queen can't get through that. And so the swarming queen, they always leave with the old proven queen that is already laying eggs. And if she can't leave with that swarm, then they're not going to swarm. Or yeah, they won't. She can't leave. So she's trapped in there, you see. So these are your emergency kind of radical ways that you can do something to buy yourself some time. You can't leave that on there forever. You've trapped your drones in there. So you got to deal with it, okay? And that's important. But I think the best thing to do, and when you can work this out, is to make a split. Before the hive swarms, you need to make a split. And I kind of like doing it before they even start really making queen cells, if you can work that out. It's really good. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a minute. So keeping foragers in the split, this is a tough thing to do. So before we talk about this, let me just tell you how I make my splits. I spent a lot of time trying all the different kinds of splits. I've tried, I think, every known way to make a split, using all the devices, all the historical data, and they work, and they're great, and they work better for some people. What works good for me, okay, because I like things simple. If you know much about me, you got to know that I really like to keep things simple. Sometimes I don't have a lot of time out in the hive, and so I got to go out there and get it done. Here's the way I make it simple, and it's extremely effective. I go to the big colony that survived winter, and I got a lot of them this year. And I go out there, and I'll pull out 4, maybe 5 frames, usually 4. And I will take a couple of frames of brood, and then I'll take a frame of honey or nectar, a couple of frames of honey and nectar, and then I'll have one frame with drawn comb on it. So 2 brood, 2 food, 1 blank. And I will make that into a split. I take the old queen on those frames. And here's why I do that. Listen, because if I take the old queen, now the colony has to raise a new queen. And so by raising a new queen, they can't swarm because they have to have a queen to swarm. So I have bought myself 30 days. Okay. So they're going to raise a queen by the time she gets, 16 days under the cap until she emerges, a week until she kind of goes out and mates, and then another week till she starts laying. So roughly 30 days. So when I make my split, taking away the old queen, I prevent a swarm by 30 days. If I do it at the end of April, I push myself all the way down to almost the end of May. And since I took out 4 frames, I will put in usually 4 undrawn frames. That makes all my bees do a lot of work. So that kind of breaks their mentality of wanting to swarm because they're having to draw frames out. Their mama's gone. They're having to raise a new queen. She's got to get mated. There's so much going on. They just lose the instinct to swarm. They can, and sometimes they do. So be on guard that they might actually swarm on you at the end of May. So you got to keep watching when you know that queen is starting to lay again. They might swarm. So anyway, oh my gosh, that is so easy. Do all the other methods if you want to. I did. I know when you're new to beekeeping or you want to experiment, you want to try all these other methods, and some may work better for you guys. This has just really been an easy thing that works well for me. Now, this is what's tough though, because when you make that split, you got to put it somewhere. You can't put it right next to the hive it came out of, because all the foragers are just going to fly back into their original colony, the mother hive. And so a lot of beekeepers ask me, David, what do I do? Make a split? Where do I put them? I'm going to lose my foragers. And hey, I tell you, here's how it goes down. I've done this. This has happened to me several times where I make a split and I move my split somewhere. All the foragers go back to their original hive, and that split can die. Yeah, it can die. There's nobody bringing in resources. Sometimes a lot of even the nurse bees, the younger bees, can actually fly back out to their original hive and just abandon your split. So what you have to do is move it 2 miles away. You have to load it up in the back of your truck or car trunk, and you have to go 2, 3, or at least 2 miles away and let it sit there for a couple of weeks so the foragers get familiar with that new location. Then when you come back, you can bring it back in a couple of weeks and put it wherever you want to on your property, because they're going to take a new orientation flight. Now, that's a lot of work. It really is. I've done that a ton, and I don't like doing it because I don't like having to drive away and have my bees somewhere else. So what I do now, and I've done for a long time, I actually put something in front of the split. So I may move it, a considerable distance away from my hive, but I'll put something right in front of the opening within inches of it. A big folded up lawn chair, a big piece of plywood. So when the bees come out, the new foragers come out, it may actually force them to take a new orientation flight. And that way they'll stick to their new location. That works for me 9 out of 10 times. And so you might still lose some, but the majority are going to be sticking around. So I've heard other people tell me they like to obstruct the entrance, like they'll block it off for a couple of days. And then they'll put some grass in there for a couple of days. So maybe all the foragers will take a new orientation flight. So look, there's no easy way around that. There's a reason bees memorize where they live, because they're flying at least 2 or 3 miles away. They're going all over the place. They have to know where home is. And we want them to know. So we're glad that our bees have a great GPS built into them to know exactly where home is. But when you try to work against it by moving it to a new location, they're going to go back where their home is. So that's something that's hard to do. There's no easy way around it. I've had so many people ask me, what's an easy way to do it? There's no easy way to do it. You're trying to delete somebody's memory. It's hard to do. Well, what about feeding these splits when you make a split? It's really important to actually feed splits. Spring Sometimes it's unpredictable. You can have a lot of cold snaps in the spring. April showers brings May flowers, and there can be a lot of rain. And if bees are trapped in their hive, a new split that you made, and they're trapped in there because of a whole week of rain, well, then they don't have the resources coming in, and they need that. So always feed that split from the top, because sometimes in the spring it can drop below 50 Fahrenheit. And so they need to cluster. Yeah, they'll cluster. And so if you feed them from the top, the cluster can eat. In other words, if you feed them from the entrance and they cluster, they don't go outside the hive to that entrance feeder. So feed them from the top. And I would include the additives that I made a video a couple of days ago on adding the pollen substitute, a protein powder, Honeybee Healthy Amino Bee Booster to that. There's an image of the boards that we sell to feed in the spring. Okay, let's talk about queens and splits. Does the queen go with the split or stay in the parent hive? Now, I mentioned that I like to move the original queen with my split. If you have another reason that you'd like to keep your original queen back home with the mother hive, that's fine. There's no problem doing that. I know a lot of beekeepers that say they prefer to do that, and they just let their new split raise a new queen with eggs in there. It's fine to do that. The only thing that you're going to have to be aware of is that even if you tear the queen cells, the swarm cells out, since the original mother queen is in there, and since the hive is still pretty overpopulated and wanting to swarm just to reproduce, you still got to battle swarm within a week. So you're constantly having to watch that hive, where I'm doing it where I don't have to think about it again for another month. I think that's really important. It can be exhausting. Is it better to let, like I said, when I make a split, I let my original mother colony raise their own queen. Now, I can't really raise queens that early. I don't start grafting and raising queens in late April yet. And so I let them raise their own. It's easier for me to do. Now, could you buy your own and put in that split? Absolutely, you can. And it might be better because if you have a good, reliable source, they sell good mated queens. Yeah, you might want to go ahead and order a queen before you make your split, have her arrive, make sure she's healthy, and then make your split, put your new queen where you removed your old queen after waiting a day. And the pheromones disperse, queen mandibular pheromones. And that way you can drop your new queen in there, and man, she starts laying within a few days after she gets out of her cage. So if you want to put the money into a queen, you can do that. You can buy a queen, and you don't have to let them raise their own. If you let them raise their own, she has to mate, and there's a risk that she can be eaten by a bird, killed in a thunderstorm in the mating flight. So by buying a queen and putting her in there, you're spending extra money, but you're also ensuring that you're getting a mated queen already. But, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Again, that's what I use all those swarm cells for. Yeah. How many splits can you make out of a hive? Well, I have made, the most I've ever really done successfully where they built up very strong is 4. And so I usually take out 3 or 4 frames out of a colony, and then I'll maybe let them build up in a couple of weeks, do it again, let them build up in a couple of weeks, do it again. So, you can keep doing that. Now, when I do it that way, I usually leave the mother queen, the original queen, in the colony. And I just keep pulling out frames of brood that she's laying on in that case. And so by leaving the original queen in the hive, that's where you're probably going to be better making multiple splits from her because she's continuing to lay brood. If you pull her out, then you don't have brood in there for 30 days. So you really can't make splits any more than that one. So you got to think about leaving the original queen in that hive. And it may take you a couple of months to actually get enough bees to make those, make 4 splits. So if you're not an experienced beekeeper and you make too many splits, you may wind up weakening every colony that you're playing with, the splits and the original hive, to the point where they don't ever build up well that year and they don't make any honey for you. But you kind of have to monitor, a lot of that you're doing. And the final thing in the teaching tonight is what about treating? You know, we want to treat for mites early in the spring, keep those under control all year long. And so I kind of think it's better to treat the colony before you make the split, because that way when you make your split, you're making a split with kind of clean bees. And so you got clean bees being pulled out to make a split. You got a clean hive to keep working with from the original colony. So it's going to be probably better for you to make sure you get your mites under control. Otherwise, you're just taking a whole bunch of mites and spreading them around your apiary into different splits and all. And by the way, it's difficult to treat a little split because a lot of times the label requires a certain, 2 deep boxes or a single deep box, and you may not have that. You may just have a 5-frame nuke. Then you got to do like, well, what kind of treatment? How much of the treatment do I use? All of it? Half of it? Do I use half of it? You have all that. So I think it's better to follow the label, treat the big hive, and then make your splits. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that teaching tonight. Yeah. Getting ready to make splits, it's challenging. Wow. Yeah, it is. I enjoyed teaching that tonight. Hopefully hit on some good things that can help you guys out when you're facing what to do with these splits and all. I know it doesn't answer every single scenario, possibility, and all that, but it's a good foundation to have a good understanding of how to deal with this. Absolutely. Looks like we have a good crowd tonight. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you here. All right. We have a giveaway coming up, and I want to talk about the giveaway right now. We're not going to do it yet, but I do want to talk about it. We had a wonderful Beak Squad member who donated a package of bees, one of our own packages that we have here. They donated one to be given away tonight to a youth. We might call this a youth scholarship. It's a youth donation, somebody that's 18 years old or younger that's getting into beekeeping or is into beekeeping. Then this may be just the time for them to get a new package. So in a little bit, we're going to be having a giveaway for that. So yeah, some guidelines about that. I know that you might be a mom or a dad, aunt, uncle, friend, whatever, grandparent, and you want to get this package for your youngster. That's perfectly fine. Okay. We know that that's how it has to happen. That's fine. You can put your name in the hat and try to get that. However, listen closely. You have to come get it. We do not ship bees because we love bees too much. It's hard on bees. We used to ship bees, and we found it's very stressful on bees to be shipped. Shipping companies aren't always kind to bees. They sometimes get scared and they mishandle them, not understanding bees. And so we don't like to put our bees through that. So you do have to be within 2 or 3 hour drive here in Central Illinois to come and get the bees. Okay. So no reason to put your name in the hat if you can't get here to pick it up. I think the date is April the 26th. It's a Saturday, April 26th. And so you'll need to be able to be here on that day to pick up the bees that you won. Okay. So just laying that out there ahead of time to help you get ready to be part of the youth scholarship. I think it's great that a Beak Squad live stream member was willing to do that. And, I saw some donations coming in while I was teaching tonight, and I want to thank you guys for that. Our live stream here is all about helping people out, helping beekeepers with questions, helping young people get started. Hey, Ryan, thank you for your donation tonight. Ryan's already seen a lot of brood in his hive. That's a good thing. So any donation that you guys made is always so much appreciated because we like to put it back into the community. We like to give it back. Leah Burns. Yeah, my daughter-in-law and Vera and my son Seth. Good to have you guys. Hi, Vera, my granddaughter. Good to see you. Vera, she likes to watch me on the big TV at home. I had several of you in North Carolina at the conference that told me you like to watch me as you're going to bed. A little bit awkward, but I understand. Okay. All right. Let's get into some question time. What kind of questions do you guys have on your mind about bees tonight? Love to help you with any questions that you might have. I know it's the time of the year where a lot of questions are on our mind. Hey, Ross, thanks for being a member of my YouTube channel. And by the way, I just produced, I think last week, a members only video for those of you that are members. So thanks for being a part of my membership. David, how much stock do you put into local genetics? Hives that made it through one's local winter. Ross, I'm telling you what, that is a winner. If I had a bell, I would ring it. Ding, 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 ding. It is a winner. I put a lot of stock. No pun intended, but I put a lot of stock in that. Absolutely. If you have a hive that's doing fantastic, I like to graft out of that hive. There's no reason to draft out of a dead hive. First of all, you can't, but secondly, you get the idea that that ain't a good hive. It's dead. No, if you got a good hive and it made it through winter, by all means, man, I would, Ryan said he's got bees made it through winter and he's got brood already. You need to graft, get some queens out of those hives. Save your money, learn to raise queens. And I've got my queen courses at half price online. You can learn how to do it online from the comfort of your home. Man, you can save so much money. And you're going to have queens available when you want them available. That's what I like. Absolutely. Good question, by the way. Yeah. Oh, Gene says I got to move a hive, David. Any good tips? I have to move hives too, Gene. I moved a lot of them in the wintertime when they were like not flying. And then I drug my heels. And now I still got about another 5 or 6 hives, from the YouTube yard down there. You guys seen all the trees. I don't like them down there. It's too far for me. I'm moving them back here closer behind the building. And I've got to still move them. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to wait for colder weather. Not going to move them when it's warm, but I'm going to wait for a little colder weather. And then I go there at night and I'll take some screen. And you can use any screen. I use the 1/8 hardware cloth, like bottom board screen, and make a little V shape out of it so it plugs the entrance. Tie a tie-down strap around the whole thing. Put a bar across the top under the tie-down strap. And my son Christian and I will pick that up, load it on a trailer, and then drive it back here and plop it down. That's kind of the best way to do it, really, at night. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to do it, but that works out really good. Hey, Steve, is it okay to remove a honey frame next to a frame of brood and replace it with a drawn frame to encourage the queen to lay more brood? Yes and no. That frame that's next to that brood, that frame of honey, it's actually part of the feeding system or the feeding demand that the bees have to feed the larvae, to feed themselves so they can produce from their hypopharyngeal gland, they can produce royal jelly. So if you take away their food source like that, they may not be able to produce royal jelly. I'm a little worried about it. I get what you're saying, though. You want more room for the brood, don't you? Can you move that frame of honey over one frame spot and then put the drawn comb next to the brood? Maybe keep that honey at least a frame nearby. That I'd feel better about that. But yeah, you can do that. I don't think it would hurt too bad. But if you took it all the way out, it may be depleting them of what they need. Hey, Dan, I bought wax for waxing new frames and noticed today that it is cosmetic grade filtered wax. Will this work, or is it a certain wax to look for? Yeah, I don't know. Cosmetics seems safe, doesn't it? I think people are putting it on their face. It's filtered, but I don't know. I don't think I would. I think I would want to go, it could have an odor, could have a certain thing in there. So I'd be reluctant. I think I would go for 100% beeswax, just pure beeswax, right? And you can buy that. So try to get just 100% pure beeswax. That you'd feel better about it. Hey, Tammy, is winter bee venom different? They seem more painful and it lasts longer. Tammy, I totally agree. I go out there and the first sting of the winter hurts like crazy. And I think it doesn't really have much to do with the bees as it does us. I think we have spent too much time without that venom coursing through us, and we have more of a reaction to it than normal. You kind of build up a little bit of either tolerance to it or reaction. You react less to them the more you're stung. So I don't think it's any different in the bees themselves. Hey, John, When would you consider starting one-to-one feeding with the Burns feeder board upstate New York when the temps are above freezing for the next week or so? Got a video that I made 2 days ago, John. Please watch that. And I think the best time to do it is when temperatures get above 50 degrees in the daytime Fahrenheit. I think you're going to be okay to do that. Somebody asked me, David, do you leave it on there at night? Doesn't it get cold? It In a big colony, it really doesn't get that cold because the colony cluster or the bees themselves, the heat goes up and it kind of gets on into that jar a little bit. So it can stay warm up there, but they don't eat as much when it's cold. I know. But if it gets really cold again in upstate New York, really a cold snap, you may have to take that off and drop on the winter be kind again. We're in a fluctuating time. Yeah. Hey, Steve, I'm going to try drone frames this year as part of my Mite Control process. Any advice on when to install them? Yeah, you want to start installing them about the time that your bees, about the time that you're able to get one in there. So any day that you can go in there now and do an inspection and put one in there so they can start drawing it out. You want them to make wax on it, right? And they build up wax really good in the spring. So make sure it's on their early spring, okay? So they can get the wax drawn out and they'll start raising a lot of drones in the spring too. Yeah, they do help with managing your mites. Well, hello, Jay. Good to see you today, Jay. I have one-to-one with protein, etc., that is left over from last fall. Should I use it or discard it? Make a fresh batch. Jay, let's make a fresh batch. Yeah, please. People don't realize that this mixture is really, it's so natural. And natural things don't last long. If you get processed food that's heavily processed, it'll last a long time. So when you make something that's good for you or good for your bees, it kind of changes. And because it's so fresh and natural. So yeah, let's make a new batch. Absolutely. Hello, Joe. I've got an extremely aggressive hive that needs to be requeened. Thanks. Yeah, welcome to the club. Trouble is that she's very good at hiding. Welcome to the club. I know. And I'm unable to find her. I know. Advice, suggestions. What would you do? I guess I have to say what I'm doing. I've got the same hive. I've had them before and I have muscled up and I've fixed it. But this hive here, I don't know if I'm older now and I don't want to mess with it anymore. They're surviving. They do good. So here's the deal. This is what I should tell you to do. Go in there and take 3 queen excluders or however many it takes and put a queen excluder between every box for a week. A little tough to do when they're mean. But then you can go back a week later and whatever box has eggs in it, take that box and walk away with it really far away. And then put your hive back together again. I made a video on this. By doing this, that box will become less aggressive, being away from their hive and being less bees. Move them away, sit on a picnic table. I made a video on how to do this. And you can sit there and look through 10 frames and get the queen out. It's really easy to do. That works. Or you can do what I'm doing right now and just put up with it. I guess it's a phrase my dad taught me. And he said, David, don't stir the stink. Anybody know what that means? It just means if something doesn't smell good, don't go stirring it up, So don't go looking for trouble. And so I'm debating on what to do with that hive. So there you go. Tiffany, thank you for your donation tonight. Appreciate it. Looking forward to meeting you at EAS this year. I learned so much from your videos. Well, be sure and let me know, Tiffany, that's you when you get to EAS in New Jersey. I'm looking forward to being there too. I stay very busy. I help with the certification process of master beekeepers. I'm the field team leader, getting those hives ready to be part of the exam. So, but do come and say hello to me. I look forward to meeting you. Well, Justin, thanks for your donation too. Marin County, California, making splits on Saturday. Yeah, I bet. On Sunday, I'm picking up and installing queen cells that were grafted. Any tips on that method? Not really. What are they, 13 days old, 14 days old, hopefully? I would try to keep them kind of warm. I would keep them in a vertical position, those queen cells, and then I would insert them carefully into the hive. Some people put 2 in there for insurance, But yeah, just don't be too rough with those queen cells. And that it should work out pretty good for you. They need to be about at least 13 days old. All right, it's getting later. Let's do one more question here. Robert, how are you doing? Caught my first swarm in Swarm Box 24 hours ago. Wow. Did you say where you lived? Oh, I wish I knew where you lived, Robert. Catching swarms someplace, I assume in the south. Should I treat OA now? When can I move them out of Swarm Box? Thanks, David. You're awesome. Yeah, you know, the answer to that, Robert, is you can absolutely do any and all of that. It doesn't hurt to treat them now. You can wait a little bit if you want to. You need to move them out of the Swarm Box as soon as you can. I don't know what kind of Swarm Box you have. Did it have frames in it? Was it empty? You know, you need to get them to settle down in their new location as soon as possible. Yep. All right, good. Hey, let's take a moment and have our giveaway now. And we'll take more questions at the end of the giveaway. But here you go. We're giving away a new package of bees to a youth. This is a youth scholarship of the live stream. We had someone that was so kind to donate a package of bees to a youth. Remember, you got to be close enough to drive and pick it up here on April the 26th. And that's important that you know that. Now, you don't have to be the one putting your name in the hat today. You have to be the one that is responsible for making sure the package is given to a youth under the age of 18 to help them get started in beekeeping. And maybe you want to be a mentor to them. So hashtag bees, okay? Hashtag bees is the comment that you want to leave. And we'll start collecting comments for hashtag bees. All right, there we go. And that's going to be fun to see a young person get started in beekeeping. Hashtag bees. I think I put my own name in there. If I win, I'll let the next runner up get it. Oh, gosh. But anyway, I see a lot of you guys are doing that. I wish I'd have started when I was young. Beekeeping is so fun. And I think when you consider what a young person learns in beekeeping, it's fascinating. You learn biology, you learn botany, you learn science, you learn math. you learn almost every aspect of science because, you know, bees are so intriguing. And it's so fun to learn more about bees. You learn not only about bees, you learn about the flowers they go to, you learn about weather, and you learn about their pests and their diseases. So you learn about other insects. You learn about what kind of diseases that bees struggle with and how to keep bees healthy. So there's a lot that benefits a young person that gets into beekeeping. It also, you know, I think pets, I know my parents certainly allowed me to have pets when I was young because that taught me a lot of things about life, that pets teach children responsibilities. It teaches you to deal with death when pets die. And so that's important too. While we're collecting comments, I want to give a shout out tonight to Henry and Margaret in Bermuda. They watch my videos, and Margaret has been a beekeeper for a long time. Hello, Margaret. I hope you're watching tonight. And her son, Henry. And they're going to be working some bees together. And hats off to Margaret. I mean, she has worked bees for so long and just loves bees. And I think that's amazing. So I just want to give a shout out to them. What a special relationship that they can work together. That's really cool. Yeah, I love that. A lot of people that are working together. In North Carolina, I met a lot of families. I met some moms that were working with their daughters or sons and beekeeping together. Some couples, that a lot of families that work together with bees. That's really great. So hashtag bees. If you want a youth to win, you have a youth in your family or a grandson or a son or a daughter in your family that wants to get into beekeeping and would love to get a package of bees, leave hashtag bees in the comment. And let's go ahead and we will see who the winner is. All right. Robbie had a death in the family and he can't be here tonight. So David is trying to figure out how to do Robbie's job. So I'm going to do it. Okay. All right, let's see. I'll share my screen here. Try not to mess this up. All right, there we go. That works out pretty good. Right. All right. Everybody got your name in the hat? I see a few more putting your name in the hat there. All right, here we go. Let's see who will win. Let's go for it. All right, the youth scholarship, first youth scholarship of the live stream. Pretty cool. It's going to be great for a young person. Liz Gassaway. Okay, there you go. Congratulations, Liz. Be sure and email us within 24 hours. You'll email beaksquadwinner@gmail.com. Beaksquadwinner@gmail.com. Congratulations. Wow, that's a lot of fun. And keep us up to date, too. I want to know how the young person is going to make it through the year, what kind of mentor they have. That's going to be a lot of fun. Well, hello, Brian. Good to see you. Thank you, Brian, for your donation. My only colony had a dead out. I live in Massachusetts, so I'm sure any mites and beetles froze. Can I store the hive and frames in my yard until I get my new nook in May? If so, what precautions should I make? Yeah, Brian, you sure can. Sorry to hear about that, but you're learning. You got a lot of drawn comb to use. And yeah, you can reuse all that provided they didn't die of a disease. It's fine. Keep in mind, yeah, it did freeze out and kill all that stuff in there. But do keep in mind that if you leave it someplace where new things can get in there before you put your bees in there, you might have ants, cockroaches, even beetles might get in there. So kind of keep them away from some bugs. Hi, Pamela. Thank you for your donation. And thank you, Robert, for your donation too. Yep, I've already commented on Robert's swarm there. That's really great. Yep. Hey, Sally. Well, appreciate your donation tonight. All hives made it. The winter bee kinds were amazing. Well, good. Glad to hear that, Sally. Awesome. It's a good feeling when you look out there and see your bees living and making it through the winter. So I'm glad the winter bee kinds helped you. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, bees love to be fed. Hey, Tracy, are drones from laying workers as good as if the queen has laid them? Nope. Nope, they're not. They're not bad. They can mate with virgin queens, but here's the deal. You know, when in a drone congregation area where the drones all hang out and wait for a nice virgin queen to show up, then in the mating process, all the drones will chase down the virgin queen. And the ones at the front of the line will succeed in mating with the queen. And I kind of think the ones that are smaller, they will be smaller by being raised in worker size cells. They're just not going to make it. You know, biologically, they probably do produce enough semen to actually fertilize the queen, but I just don't think they're going to make it to the front of the line. Yeah, but they can. Hey, Gary, I'm considering trying a worry hive along with my Langstroths. Where will be the normal challenges? Any special tips? A true worry is going to be bottom supered, bottom boxed. You don't want to interfere. If you're going to keep the true worry loyalty, you don't want to open them up too much. You don't want to disturb the pheromone. Most of them use top bar only frames, not any kind of foundation. They pull out their own foundation. If you want to go strictly by the science of a worry hive. That's kind of the biggest challenging part. They oftentimes do use quilt boxes for moisture control at the top, but the bottom box supering method and not getting in there too much to disturb pheromones, that's the challenging part too, Gary. Study it up and see what you think. If you're good at Langstroths and you just want to experiment, hey, I think it'd be great. Why not, right? Yeah, that's cool. Can you take 4 frames of a colony that's strong and put them in another colony that's not as strong? Also, does that help as swarm control? It will help if you take the queen, but if you don't take the queen, removing some of the frames may not guarantee that it will stop a swarm. I got time to put out this warning. Just because you give a hive more room does not mean they won't swarm, because remember, it's a reproductive swarm. They want to reproduce. So if you see swarm cells and you throw an extra super on top, they're still going to swarm because they want to reproduce. But yeah, you can do that. You got to play with some different challenges because you're going to be dealing with, will the other weak colony accept those 4 frames in the bees, or will they fight a little bit? Usually we use a newspaper trick like that. You might get away with it in the spring. I have. All right. Well, that's enough questions. That's enough live stream for tonight. Thank you, everybody. I loved it. It was so nice being with you and so nice seeing so many of you here tonight. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. I can't tell you how much I enjoy helping beekeepers. And I'm just, if you weren't here, I wouldn't have as much fun because I couldn't answer your questions. And it gives me I'm humbled to be able to help you. I really am. I'm humbled that you trust me to ask me questions. So guys, thanks so much. I hope your week is going good. I do appreciate you so much. I love you to the moon and back. I wish we could be together and hang out. And, but this is a way to hang out and be together. And, listen, no matter what you're going through in life, I know everything can't be perfect for all of us, all of you. And so no matter what your kind of the bumps in the road that you're going through, no matter what challenges, beekeeping, non-beekeeping, just life in general, maybe you got some family issues, financial issues, health issues, job issues. Who doesn't, right? Come on. Here's the deal. Just like the sign says back here, we got to cowboy up. I know it doesn't solve all problems. I've had times when I've been down and I didn't want to cowboy up. I wanted to sulk and be in self-pity. But that didn't really ever get us anywhere. It feels good to cowboy up, doesn't it? Get back up on the horse, ride it again, We're going around the sun one more time, another day, another year. Let's give it our best. Remember, like a great philosopher once said, don't hide your light under a bushel. I think it's important we encourage each other. I'm here to help you with bees. I'm also here to encourage you. You can do it. I got you. I love you and appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good evening.